Hey guys, welcome back. So now we're jumping back into our talks on Judgment Day with X-Men Red, The Hour of Magneto, which really just starts here and continues throughout Judgment Day issue 4. But even still, in the pages of X-Men Red, we get more of the depth of what this moment means for the Arakko people, with this Judgment Day event birthing a new era for the people of Arakko. So let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week. And don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so for this one we head back over to Arakko, just moments after the Hour of Uranus, of which he personally only participated in for 20 minutes, but aside from the destruction that he had done as an individual, upon his departure back to the Exclusion, his armory stayed on Arakko and continued to wreak havoc, which is where we jump back in. Because it's here where we find Dr. Craig Marshall, who's a soil scientist from NASA, who initially came here to just study the dirt after the planet had been terraformed. So at this point, he's been living on Mars for the past month, and through that time, he's come to know the Arakko people to an extent. Because with the Arakko, even though they're very adamant about destroying their enemy, Dr. Craig Marshall had discovered during his time here that if you are not an enemy, then immediately the Arakko treats you like a friend, which he found to be very different from what he was told back on Earth when people warned him and the other scientists of how dangerous the Arakko are. But in this moment, he finds himself saying these things and making a log of what he's pretty sure is going to be his last words. Because as he's observing the armory of Uranus attacking the people of Arakko, he definitely sees this as an example of someone making themselves an enemy of Arakko. But at this time, Dr. Craig, he's found himself protecting those who aren't of age to fight at the request of A.X.E of the 8 Blades. And it's kind of a touching moment here where he tries to tell them that he'll distract this thing so they'll have an opportunity to run away, but these kids don't want to run because they're Arakko and they see that as weakness. So he then tries to reword it in a way to where it sounds like they're showing strength by making a strategic retreat. And it's kind of a touching moment because this guy's getting ready to go down solo, like he's preparing himself for a heroic death scene. But then Storm shows up and she's like, nah, that's not how it's gonna go down. But with her arriving here, Lactusha of the Stars and Sobenar of the Depth, she immediately takes the fight to this thing. And with the way that Storm combats this machine, it's done in a way that the Arakko aren't too familiar with. And really throughout the course of this, it's something that the Arakko are beginning to learn the true value of. And really it's the idea of working together and fighting together. Because when Storm gets here, she uses the help of Sobenar to add moisture to the air, which Storm uses to make a monsoon, which caused the machine to stop for a second because it's trying to recalibrate and see what's going on. And for the finisher, Lactusha of the Stars could teleport this thing into the sun. But instead, Storm decides to express some of her anger and also what appears to be a bit of frustration as she just shocks the mess out of this thing, because while she was gone, these machines were killing the people she swore to protect. And alone, Storm cannot be in more than one place. But even still, Sobenar lets Storm know that the words of the old prison legend echo, saying that if Storm wasn't here, then she was definitely somewhere fighting the same enemy, which as we know is precisely what was going on when we saw her fighting the Hex just above Krakoa. But also, pretty much from the start of this event and even up until now, we've heard Storm express some of the frustration of not being able to be in more than one place. But it's here where she kind of gets a taste of that, when Lactusha of the Stars shares her vision with Storm in order to show her where they can go first to be the most effective. Because all of Arakko needs help, but the intention at this point is to go where they can do the most help. And through the course of this, we're given a bit of a montage, where first we see Richard Rider doing as much as he can do by himself, as we see him still fighting solo above Port Prometheus. And after that, we see the Fisher King, who's taking part in the return of the Seed of Night, which we'll talk more about in a little bit. But when we see him at this point, it's him and one other, and soon to be 3. And just after this, we then jump over to A.X.E, who in the last issue, Nightcrawler had just dropped her off over the ocean just west of Arakko Prime, where A.X.E the Unbeaten is doing her best to be uneaten. And even now she's using her power by siding with Uranus as a mechanism for survival, and I can only imagine that there's going to be a point in time, and even if it's brief, but I imagine there's going to be a point in time where A.X.E realizes that she doesn't have to be a traitor in order to use her power. And I'd like to see her get to that place, even if it's just for a little while. But after this, we then jump over to a few others where we find Sunspot along with Wrongslide, as well as Cora of the Burning Heart, who are fighting with the Brotherhood and the locals. But also, for a very brief moment, we see WizKid and Cable on Sword Station 2, where it almost seems like they're about to figure out some secrets that Abigail Brand has been keeping, and in this moment, she can't do anything about it because she's being resurrected after being killed by Uranus. But through the course of this montage, last and definitely not least, we head over to Magneto, Lotus Logos, and Xylo. And for a moment, Magneto's fighting one of these machines with the help of Lotus Logos, with him spitting out the metal once again, and Magneto using it to take down this big plastic gorilla. And it's here we get a moment where Magneto tells Logos that the two of them make a fine team, and in response, Logos and Xylo, they make notice of how much the Arakko could benefit and do more with the idea of adopting the method of using teams, but it's something that they moved away from long ago, back when Apocalypse had originally left. But in this moment now, with the state that everything is in, Logos expresses that there really isn't any time to enforce this ideal in a larger scope, because they have to keep fighting. Because if they take a break to try to put teams together, there's a chance that tomorrow won't even come. And with the state that Magneto is in right now, with him using his powers just to keep his blood moving, just to keep him alive, it requires flawless and absolute concentration. And for that reason, he's not even sure if he's gonna make it to see tomorrow. But then it's in this moment where Sunspot, the Fisher King, and Syzia make their way there. And I'm not sure the pronunciation of her name is Syzia or Syzia, S-Y-Z-Y-A. But if one of you guys know, drop it in the comments for me. But with them arriving here, we come to find out that they have formed what is the return of the Seats of Night, of the Shadow Table. And their positions are similar to the other seats that formed the Great Ring before most of them got killed, but with the Seats of Night being separate from the Seats of Dawn, Day, and Dusk, to whom the original members served as spies, until Genesis, the wife of Apocalypse, had saw them as weak, since all the others would fight at war, and those of the Shadow Table, they would only perform as spies and secret warriors. And then eventually Aura then blinked the original members of the Night Seats out of existence, leaving only the Great Ring. But I'm sure it's gonna go much better for these guys. You know, we'll see. But among the Shadow Table, amongst the different seats, you have Syzia, or Syzia, however you say it, because sometimes Y is pronounced as I, but for her, she sits at the seat of nowhere. And the Fisher King, who officially is the man without a name, he sits in the seat of nothing, while Sunspot sits in the seat of nobody. But with the three of them arriving here as the Shadow Table, which by the way was brought about by Roberto da Costa, bringing together the other two, while also causing the Fisher King to reconsider his thoughts on Magneto, who prior to now the Fisher King had just been skeptical of. And really it's from here where more of the conversation of working together and fighting together goes underway. Though I can't help but think that the Fisher King is still kind of watching Magneto with a side eye. But while they're here, the plastic gorilla pops back up, and it's here where they find that these machines from the armory of Uranus can heal themselves. And in this moment, once again, we get a glimpse of what Storm sees through the eyes of Lektuka, of the stars. And all around Arakko, these machines are pulling themselves back together and they're still fighting. And really, I gotta admit, like, will we see this every time we go back to Richard Rider, as he's fighting these drones and now the drone factory above Port Prometheus. And it's like this guy's been by himself this whole time. And I just imagine when he sees this thing pull itself back together, he's just like, come on, man, give me a break. And though he's holding it down, I ain't gonna front, I would have been looking around like, help me. Because he's been holding it down since Uranus first got there. But at this point, we jump back to Magneto and the plastic gorilla, because it's here where we find that Storm has made her choice as far as where she can go and be the most effective. And I imagine Richard Rider, he's over there like, really? Like, I imagine he's gonna feel some type of way when he gets the news. But as soon as Storm arrives here, she strikes Magneto with lightning, which effectively supercharges his power. And instantly when this happens, the struggle of keeping himself alive, it just becomes effortless. But with Storm doing this, it comes at a cost, because charging Magneto with this much energy, it could kill her. Because this is something that we were shown back in Uncanny X-Men issue 150, when the two of them had first discovered this when Storm had attacked Magneto, but by warping magnetic fields within the Tempest, he was able to draw down lightning bolts from the sky and filter them through Storm before making use of that power. And at the time, it was so intense that Storm started to burst into flames. But fortunately, at that time, Nightcrawler was able to teleport Storm off the island into the water and cool her off before she burned to death. Which, by the way, also makes me think that what he had did to A.X.E, the Unbeaten, in issue 5 was a bit of an Easter egg too. But at this point, with Storm doing this intentionally, it allows her to do this without burning up this time, but even still, she's in pain and she understands that having this much power filtered through her to overcharge Magneto, it could kill her. And really, had they not had the prior experience and one of them handled this the wrong way, the other could have died. And I love seeing this happen because on one hand, it's like the ultimate flex, not just of power, but also the two of these guys saying like, we go back, we go way back. Because for me, one of the things that I've loved the most about X-Men anything is the way that different mutants would come together and share their powers to pull off something phenomenal. And that's exactly what we get here, because together the two of them just melt this plastic gorilla, which also shows everyone here just an example of what they're capable of working together. But after this is done, for a moment they consider taking Magneto to the healing gardens of Krakoa to take care of that hole in his chest. But once again, with them not having time even for that, with the rest of Arakko barely holding on, they then decided the only solution to ending this, since they can't be everywhere on Arakko at the same time, the only way to stop this is to take the fight directly to Uranus. And even with them taking the new approach of working as a team, they're very much taking with them the law of Arakko, which is destroy your enemy. And we'll pick up with that and a lot more when we get into Judgment Day Part 4. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below so we can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.